You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings.
I'm scratching my head. Performances with just lack that intensity.
Boom. Right.
I think we'll start with the green. We start with the green. We should start with the green this week. We should start with Dublin this week. We'll be singing Molly Malone by the end of this show. That's how into this we are. 115 to 113. Not going to go down as a classic, but in the conditions, it was tight. It was tense. The sides were level on 70 minutes. It was kind of everything you wanted in terms of the closeness of the game, and it felt, looking at the reaction of the Dublin players and listening to them afterwards, that this meant a hell of a lot. That despite the 6 in a row, that they took the criticism that they've received even just up to a few weeks ago. I think even after that Roscommon performance, we're still getting it in the neck that the stick they took over the last couple of years, they took rather personally, but they got the band back together. Dessie Farrell, I think, deserves enormous credit for, Avengers assembled. Got every bit of expertise they possibly could involved through absolutely everything at this, and they needed it because it was probably the introduction of Jack McCaffrey, the brilliance of their bench that just got them over the line at the very end. And I think overall they did deserve to win that game. Their game plan, it was very defensive for large parts, but brilliant on the counter-attack. Sort of knew exactly what they were about. Their defence was far stronger than Kerry's throughout the game, and then their forwards did enough. They kicked the points when they mattered in the final stages of the game. So for a lot of these players, like for Cluxton to come back to win a 9th All-Ireland, for Mick Fitzsimons to have what arguably should have been a man of the match display, to win his 9th All-Ireland, for James McCarthy to be in the running for Footballer of the Year as he wins his 9th All-Ireland. Like, this is stuff we're never going to see again.
Yeah.
Until next year when 4 more to win their 9th All-Ireland.
Will they though? I definitely felt like this was last dance territory for a lot of them. Speaking to multiple people who are well connected within the Dublin GA community last night, there was a sense that this is the end for many of them. Like, so Dessie said it's not even I can't remember the exact quote, but it was basically like, it's not just the Owl lads who are thinking about retiring here. There are loads of people with a lot of miles on the clock who you might not anticipate,
a lot of medals, are
thinking of going.
Yeah.
And I was like, what does that mean? But again, talking to people last night, they were mentioning very unexpected names who have just had enough, that like the daily grind of getting up and doing everything that you possibly can all year long to try and win All Ireland. When you've won as many as they have, it's not as alluring anymore. Somebody said to me last night with a straight face, they won't even win Leinster next year. I was like, this is like, they won't win it by 5 or 6 points, or they won't win it at all. They won't win it at all. I was like, well, I mean, that would be great. It would be great, but I think
does the allure ever drop off? I don't know. Like, Dean Rock seemed to indicate that he was probably done, and you can understand he's not starting games. He's coming on for the final few minutes. Listen, he's kicking the final point of the game, and it's an important point. Maybe Kerry have a chance to go up if he doesn't kick it, but he kicks it as he always does. But even for James McCarthy, like, you're not a bit part player. You're not getting a few minutes here and there. If James McCarthy comes back, James McCarthy starting. All 3 of those players who won 9, if they come back, are probably starting next year. Like Kieran Kilkenny, Brian Fenton, they got a lot of yards there done, but now's not the time you step away. Not when you're making and having the types of performances that they're having. Step away for a year, perhaps. Look at what it did for Mannion. Look at what it did for McCaffrey. But I think Brian Fenton should be Footballer of the Year again this year. I thought he was exceptional at big moments in the game yesterday. And
you won't get it though.
Is Michael Fitzsimons not Footballer of the Year?
There's an argument. I think he should have been man of the match yesterday. I think Clifford is the winning and losing of that game. We all know it beforehand, and I would give Fitzsimons far more credit maybe than you are there for like the first half.
I think
the way they stopped the ball getting in.
But I still think Clifford played badly as well, and I don't think it was just cause and effect. But I don't think it was the smothering pressure. I think that, like, because Clifford missed some fairly open opportunities and was going for goal instead of taking points.
That can be down to Fitzsimons though, because he got in his head.
Maybe, but like,
you saw the video of Fitzsimons and Costello pre-game.
I didn't. I heard they were beating the crap out of each other.
Absolutely level. Like Costello
was strange.
It was very physical, but like
definitely at one stage it looked as though Fitzsimons was looking at him going,
"Is this a scrap?
Are we going to do this?
Yeah,
are we going to do this today?" I think there was definitely a mental side of it that Fitzsimons, they restricted him so much. And Clifford in the first half, every time he got in the ball, and it was rare, did the right thing and was brilliant. But you go to that last opportunity, like Kerry couldn't have worked that better to level it up for Clifford, and he misses it. But I don't know, I find it very difficult to sit here and be critical of David Clifford in any way. Maybe he took too much on his shoulders. Maybe he has to take too much on his shoulders on that Kerry team. It did feel in that second half at times, particularly was it the wide out on the right hand side that he just hooked miles up, and there was a player who made the run through and he had to give it inside, and he took the shot on, that he's thinking what we're all thinking is, we're not going to win this game unless I kick the points to win it.
Yeah.
Where actually maybe there were opportunities for him to set somebody else up, or maybe actually they weren't going to win the game unless he kicked the points to win it.
Hindsight's 2020. He looked a bit nervous pre-throw-in, like even puffing the cheeks walking around. He didn't sing the national anthem. I don't know. Is there a lot of hindsight? Because I was wondering that last night watching the Sunday game. He comes off the bus and there's a big... Yeah, it's the same in the parade.
Now look, the other thing is David Clifford, lost his mother less than 3 months ago.
Yeah, of course.
He has been through a huge amount of personal turmoil. I'm sure he's thinking back to last year's All-Ireland final and what an occasion it was for the family, and it's a very different experience from yesterday, and we don't know how that plays on him as well. So I think if there's anybody who deserves a little bit of leeway, and I think you can see from all the analysis there is quite a bit of it,
and that contextualises Paudie's performance as well. Like, he was brilliant.
Well, if Kerry win, Paudie's probably man of the match.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Kicked 3 brilliant points. But I think the Dubs, with the level of, like, you think back to 2011. So 2011, the first All-Ireland, Pat Gilroy's the manager. Pat Gilroy's on the sideline yesterday as the water boy. Brian Cullen's the captain. Brian Cullen's there on the sideline yesterday. Kev McManaman scores the goal. Kev McManaman's there on the sideline yesterday. Stephen Cluxton's in goal. Stephen Cluxton's still playing. James McCarthy's still playing. Like, they've kept this massive level of expertise and everything they've gained over the years, and they're still all there, involved in different ways. And look, Desi has to take credit for, like, allowing Pat Gilroy back. It may seem like an obvious thing to do, but you have to be quite humble to go.
I don't think it was obvious at all. I think everybody was very surprised that it happened, like, and that he's as high profile and involved. It wasn't a quiet thing in the back room at all. Like, literally in the parade, he's the one giving them their drinks. I think Desi gets all the credit here and finally gets out from under the shadow of the previous managers. And again, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this is the end of Desi Farrell's time as manager of Dublin.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking that yesterday as well. Why would you go again?
And to the point about they'll keep going because they all keep going. I don't know. I think there's a good chance that several of them decide to take a year break, and that Dublin look completely different next year. Because McCarthy didn't sound like somebody who was like gearing up to go after 10, did he? Did he not sound like somebody who, like...
No, he did. It was definitely a...
We'll see over the next few months. But
I wanted to go out and on All-Ireland, and I have it now, so maybe I'm done. Look, I think, Jared, there's a mixed analysis of your post-All-Ireland final gossip. I think last year you restrained yourself. You'd heard that Shane Walsh was going to kill McCudden, and you never said it. You had the good goss that time. So maybe we need to put a bit more trust in what you're hearing.
Okay. So my
don't give your source away.
My informed speculation. Like, who's going to take the Dublin job? Like, it's obviously very difficult. So it'll have to be somebody.
Pat Gilroy.
To your point, I don't know. I suggested that. I was told that's unlikely. But maybe not. You don't know until you ask.
Stephen Cluxton.
Well, certainly if you were going to be setting a backroom team together, you'd be asking a bunch of those people, right? Like, you'd be, I think Brian Cullen's full time with the Dubs anyway, right? That is his day job, right? Am I right about that? Would Declan Darcy be interested in the job? He might be, and that would be a continuity candidate. Would J.O. be involved? Like, he's obviously... The impact that J.O. had on Westmeath, the longer the season went on, seemed to be quite pronounced.
McBowen?
Maybe, yeah. There's definitely loads of available candidates.
It'll be a dub anyway, won't it?
Performing at a very high level. Yeah. Maybe if Banty was available, might he be interested?
You're going to put your mate in Malachy, are you?
Well,
I think Malachy might be the man to take them to another level.
Any kind of be stupid not to have him.
There's obviously a change at the top at Dublin as well. John Costello is finishing up. I think maybe this was his final week in the gig. So they've generally got their big decisions right over the last few years. But again, I think you go back to the way they've kept people involved, and you just imagine it's not going to be one guy who's just at the helm. They'll, whoever the manager is, Cullen, you'd expect will stay. Kev McManaman will stay. Like, these performance coaches that they have around the place will make sure that the standards are there. And like, Jack McCaffrey could not have been more bullish last night about what's coming next. That when I got back in that dressing room, I knew within a week we were going to win the All-Ireland. And you know what? We're going to win lots more All-Ireland when I look around that dressing room.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that would suggest that he's sticking around.
It didn't. No, I didn't get sense at all from Jack McCaffrey. This was a one and done.
No.
I'm just coming back to save things. I'm coming back because, as Jack McCaffrey is, it's better for my life to be here, and I like doing this.
Well, let's wait and see, right? Because
they're going to have about 8 players left the way you were talking.
What was Mannion saying?
Wishful thinking.
I got the sense from Mannion the same as Jack.
Right. Okay.
Look, this is from the interview, obviously in the hotel last night, but certainly got the sense that Mannion was going to keep going. But then you don't know. Like, these lads, obviously last night they're going to give nothing away. But Dean Rock and James McCarthy's language was very much
we're on the way out.
We're at the gap, like.
Yeah.
That's certainly the sense you get. And obviously after the game, they're all getting photographs. Look, some of the lads, and
well, like McCarthy could easily go again. To your point,
yeah, he's only 33.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's 10. So they're the greatest ranked footballers in terms of the number of All-Irelands that they've won ever.
Yeah.
Like, as you said, it's history and it's never going to be beaten unless somebody from their team, their squad, does it.
But they're in the GPA box next year, and Henry Shefflin's sitting there and going, show me your 10 All-Irelands, lads. Is that
10 sounds nicer.
Is that the position you want to be in for the rest of your life?
10's much better.
And is there a bit now where they've beaten Kerry and Kerry, like, they're in Kerry's heads now? Like, is it easier for them to beat Kerry next year? Or did Kerry come roaring back angry? Like, so
there's not much between them.
The gossip in Kerry is that Mark O'Connor's coming back from Australia.
Same. Down in the Kingdom last year or last week, I was hearing the same, and it's not just a Ty Kennelly one and done. It's back for good.
Yeah. So they'll be stronger, fitter, leaner. I thought Kerry were brilliant yesterday. Just a couple of mistakes.
Well, can they hold on to Paddy Tally? Like, he's been a key cog, and again, the word I was hearing last week was that in that semi-final against Derry, generally speaking, at half-time, Paddy Tally will do a lot of the talking and kind of have the plan and the team talk. And apparently, of course I don't know this for a fact, Jack O'Connor pulled rank at half-time of that All-Ireland semi-final and said, no, game plan's out the window, we're pushing on them, and they went and obviously basically destroyed Derry in that second half. So it'll be a rare thing for Jack O'Connor to do, I'd imagine, at half time of a match, but yeah, I think they should hold on to Paddy Tally if they can.
I don't think Kerry need to panic. Like, when the sides are level on 70 minutes as it ticks into injury time, who you tipping to win?
Yes, the Dubs.
Yeah,
the
Dubs. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh yeah, in yesterday's game.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
The greatest team of all time who've won, like...
I still thought Clifford was going to step up.
You think so?
To win the game or to
win the game. Like, the sides are level.
Yeah, no.
Like, there's nothing between them at that stage.
I thought it was more likely that we were going to have extra time.
Yeah, well, I definitely thought they'd find a way that we would get extra time and a replay out of this. But and look, it's definitely hindsight in... you look at the Dubs over the last couple of years. Like, last year, Sean O'Shea scores the point in the semi-final for Kerry to beat them. They're not that far away. The year before... much as it pains me to say, there's an element of freakishness in how Mayo come back. Like, they're toying with Mayo for most of that game, and they switch off, and Mayo take advantage, and they come back and they beat them. Now, there's been a lot of bad stuff in there as well. The relegation from Division 1, the general sense of flatness around the place, even at large parts of this year. But on the big championship games, like, the unfortunate thing for this group, and as much as people have spoken about how great it is for the lads who've won 9, I think it must be very special for the likes of Lee Gannon, like Colin Pascal, the guys who've had to sit there and basically listen for the last 2 years of like they were, like, these lads are nowhere near.
Pascal might have 4 or 5 All-Irelands now. He's been in the squad for like loads of those, but not seeing enough game time for him to think.
And not like yesterday's second half, steps up, scores a couple of brilliant points. Obviously, he's the match winner against Mayo in the quarter-final. Yeah. Probably going to be an all-star.
Yeah, he could have been hiked at half time, and nobody would have said, "Okay, that was a bad decision." But actually, his second half ends up being a match winner in many respects. It's his interception, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, goal. Look, 10 sounds good. Cluxton has 17 Leinster titles. Would you not like to get to 20?
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Nice round 20.
Yeah.
It was an anti-climax at the end. I don't know what it felt like in the stadium, but because the Dublin go 2 up, and I'm thinking, Kerry are going to get a chance to push up for a goal here. But then as soon as the 6 minutes is up, Gough blows the whistle. It's like, I wanted one more. I wanted Kerry to push for a goal.
Talk about the referee, and I was like, the whistle is blown at 75 minutes and 4 seconds for the free kick.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So,
yeah.
You give the other minute.
I think I did. That would be the only tiny criticism I would have of an otherwise brilliant refereeing performance. I thought at the game. So.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's keep going.
Also in the green, it's also going to be a Dublin Kerry ladies football final on Sunday week. Dublin beat Cork 2-19 to 13 points, so a comfortable enough win. They started quickly, they played with the wind, they built up a big score. Hannah Tyrrell scored an early goal. I think it probably should have been ruled out for a square ball. This kind of played a quick 1-2, and she was back inside the square by the time the ball came back, but Dublin were convincing winners. It's going to be the first time ever Dublin and Kerry have met in the ladies football final. 30 years since Kerry last won the All-Ireland. They beat Mayo 116 to 111. They lost their captain, Siofra O'Shea. She picked up a cruciate injury in training last week, so obviously going to miss the final as well, but they were keen to point out as to what a big influence she was, and text came in straight away saying, not about me this week, let's concentrate. Louisa Murray-Hurtig, the best player in the country right now. 110. So these are the two teams who were beaten by Meath in the final over the last 2 years. Meath have obviously had a change, have had a dip, so it will be once again Dublin Kerry. So that is Sunday week in the ladies football final.
Yeah, like Omar Hurtig's performance was scandalous. Niamh Hurtig, I should say. Unbelievable, like brilliant goal, like just scoring points from all over the place. So I think Kerry were the team to beat, even though like a 9-point win for the Doves over Cork is hardly to be sniffed at in a semi-final. Cork obviously have been there, done that over the last number of years, but yeah, it just feels like Kerry are maybe on another level, so that's going to be a cracking final, I think, in that one, definitely, for sure. A novel pairing, Dublin and Kerry. Yeah,
if there'd been a replay, it would have been a Dublin Kerry weekend, the Saturday and Sunday. The men's would have been Saturday evening and the women's would have been Sunday afternoon. That would have been a good weekend.
Yeah, it would have been pretty nice. Festival football.
Yeah.
We're going to the Amber.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Vera Pauw is in the Amber. Hard to believe, considering the months of build-up we had to the World Cup, that it's all coming to an end today for the Republic of Ireland. And maybe, and in all likelihood it feels, this is going to be Vera Pauw's last game as Republic of Ireland manager. There was a very tense and tetchy press conference yet again down in Brisbane ahead of the game, where Vera Pauw was been asked as to, have you heard anything? No. Have you heard anything? No. Would you like to hear something? Well, obviously, yes, I would like to hear something from the FAI. But there's been complete silence from Jonathan Hill. He told all the journalists who were over there he would talk to them while he was in Australia and have a bit of a briefing. He hasn't said anything, and there's been no support at all from the players. There were 4 players up for media on Saturday. Megan Connolly was up yesterday. All asked the same question: do you want to stay on? And they all sort of came up with the exact same stock answer of we're just focusing on the next game, this is the World Cup, this is what we're all about. So it feels that all of the things that have gone on off the pitch have come together at a very bad time for Vera Pauw, and that she doesn't really have the backing of the dressing room, and that it probably is going to come to an end, which I think if you were to look at it from a purely footballing point of view, it's very hard to make a case that Vera Pauw doesn't deserve to stay on, considering what she has achieved in getting Ireland to the World Cup, and I think performing really well in their first 2 games, and arguably getting better in these big games. But it's the other stuff. It is the accusations that have been made against her. I think it's the timing in particular of the accusations in the Athletic piece just before the World Cup, like that press conference with Katie McCabe the day before the France game. That felt like a line in the sand. Again, Katie McCabe had an opportunity to back Vera Pauw. Everyone will have seen her really sarcastic response at the end of the press conference about thanks for all the questions about the World Cup. Like, this overshadowed Ireland's build up to the World Cup.
Do you think it had an impact in terms of our early exit?
No, I think Ireland played really well. Like, again, they're playing 2 of the best teams in the competition, 2 of the strongest teams, and you can get in, and we will get into the tactical analysis of has she got the best out of Katie McCabe, has she got the best out of Denise O'Sullivan, but Ireland haven't been that far away from a position of where they have been in recent years. She has brought them on massively, but I remember being out in Abbottstown the day of the initial accusations, and Vera Pauw couldn't have been stronger, more vehement in her denials of everything that was said, but she was also incredibly strong on that's not me, that I am not that coach, I'm not this aggressive coach, I am a very soft figure around these players, I'm a very supportive figure, and at that stage that didn't stack up to it felt like there was almost having to be two extremes here, where actually, Vera Pauw is, and I mean this in the best possible way, she's very Dutch, she's very to the point, she's very straight with her answers, and she pushes the players. And Katie McCabe's response then in the press conference before the France game, where it's we go at each other, we challenge each other, but we're professional and we put it behind us and we get on with our life. And again, that's probably most dressing rooms, but you definitely got the sense from Katie McCabe that day that the players were pissed off that this was coming the day before their big send-off, and that Vera Pauw had approached The Athletic. Now, I know Vera Pauw says that they had come to her with a survey and she had gone back saying, well, why didn't you talk about what players do to coaches instead of the other way around? And then they went and spoke to the players over in Houston again, and it all escalated from there. But this has felt since then that this is Katie McCabe's team more than Vera Pauw's team, and that Katie McCabe is the driving force behind this team. But I think the silence from the FAI says it all. And
Vera was clearly pissed off the FAI in that press conference yesterday, the day before. She was asked, has this had an impact? I guess the contract weight, and her answer was just yes, and stony yes to Tony O'Donoghue's question.
See, the problem for the FAI is so they have backed Vera Pauw to the hilt. They came out that first day and they said, we believe in our manager. So why then are they not offering a new contract? If that's the case. Now, they could argue things have changed, the players' attitudes have changed, the players are very frustrated. Maybe there's a sense it's an end of the road, like Vera Pauw was interesting talking about. The natural cycle is 6 years for a manager. I think 6 years is when players and managers get fed up with each other, which would bring her on to 2025. Maybe the end of this cycle is now, if there is that real intensity to a management style. And these players have been together a long time now. They've had, since they've qualified, they've had 2 lengthy training camps. They've had about 6 weeks together since the squad came together for the World Cup. It's a lot of time in each other's company, and maybe there's a natural break, but from a purely footballing point of view, it would make you nervous, I think, about what comes next, who comes next, and how Ireland kick on as they, their next game after this is at the Aviva Stadium against Northern Ireland.
Yeah, which is supposed to be like a massive celebration and something close to a full house. So look, there's a watching brief here, and obviously there's a big game that we should be talking about, really.
Yeah, absolutely. 11 o'clock kickoff in Brisbane. I don't think Vera Pauw should be thinking about rotation massively. I think the physical, mental toil of the first 2 games means it's probably a bit of a natural couple of changes in there, but there's a lot at stake for Nigeria here, and if Ireland were to switch off and think, well, let's just give everybody a game and have a good time, you could end up at the end of a bit of a beating, which would leave a very sour taste again at the end of a World Cup where they've acquitted themselves very, very well. In saying that, you do look at the couple of players who haven't played so far, and if you leave the keepers out of it, and unfortunately the life of the sub-keeper is, maybe you just don't get that chance. But Diane Caldwell, 96 caps, I think made her debut in 2006, played the night over in Scotland, surely deserves a bit of a run out at the World Cup. Chloe Mustaki's story is one of the best stories in Irish sport, deserves a run out of the World Cup. Ciara Grant has been there, came back into the squad, having retired again. Does she deserve a bit of time? Clara Reardon is probably next in line defensively. So those 4 outfield players, maybe she gets an opportunity to give them some game time. But I think as much as is possible and as fit as players are, you go out full strength and you try and get something from this game.
Okay, on to the red.
In the red, Ger, we're going to go booing the ref. We go booing the ref first. Shane was passionate about this one. I was...
What was it like? Was it loud in the stadium?
It was very loud in the stadium.
Yeah. It was totally noticeable. Yeah.
But is it something that normally happens that the referee is... So Larry McCarthy thanked David Gough.
And his officials, yeah.
And his officials. And David Gough's picture went up on the big screen. And there was a loud boo from the hill.
And Gough was laughing.
And Gough was laughing, which is the best thing about it.
And then Larry McCarthy says, no.
Yeah.
Like an old school principal.
And I think David Gough was able to laugh, because even David Gough, I'm sure, knew at that stage, there was no big incident here. Okay, after every game, both sides are going to feel a little bit aggrieved. As I say, maybe there should have been a minute extra at the end. Give Kerry the chance to get that goal that we have a Seamus Darby moment that we're talking about for the next 100 years. And it's one of the greatest moments we've ever seen. Maybe Kerry are annoyed about the James McCarthy hit. It was very, very high at real speed. Could that have been a red card? Possibly. He'd had a few in the first half. This is in the second half.
Who's it on? Is it one of the Kerry halfbacks
who stays down injured for quite a while? Sort of clotheslines.
Or was it Moynihan? Moynihan went off that stage, didn't he?
So he clotheslined him, but it was probably it was too close to the face. In real time, it was one of those, in Gaelic football, it's almost always a yellow card. When you watch it back on the replay, maybe it could have been a little bit more. There were probably a few other incidents. The Clifford one that was overturned. Now, when you look at the replay of Clifford and Fitzsimons, where they both get yellow carded, and originally the free kick had been awarded to Kerry, probably the two of them are at it, and maybe it's good refereeing again that you talk to your umpire and say,
is that not like the best example of excellent refereeing, where he gets his ego out of the way, admits he made a mistake? I wouldn't have booked them both.
Well, I would agree. I think you're dead right. Didn't let his ego get in the way, but then probably did almost overcompensate by going, well, the two of them are in it, so I'm going to book the both to show that there was something a bit more going on here.
It did stop them from doing any of that stuff afterwards, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that might have been his thinking of, listen, I'm not going to have the next 15 minutes of you two pulling lumps out of each other. Book the two of them, and that'll put a stop to it.
Well, you were asking this morning before the show, like, was it a good game? And but for David Gough, it would have been so much worse.
I think it was like a Kilkenny hurling training session for the first 25 minutes where he spotted. Exactly. I think we were 11 or 12 minutes in. So Clifford scored a free, but other than that
was the first free given.
Was an obvious one, and it was about 10 minutes in.
Yeah.
And before that there were loads, like the fussy referees early in the championship were like, oh, there's been about 5 fouls in that you could blow for. He's like, no, let's go. And maybe because the conditions were the way they were, but people were literally taking the ball off each other in a way that generally is like, oh, you can't do that, that's a foul. But actually, I thought he was excellent.
Yeah, well, I was right down pitch side, so much so I'm bringing out a book on Jack O'Connor and Mike Quirk's conversations during the entire game. I was well, you could hear them in the first half because it was so flat, and it was as a nervy sort of tense game. Now, there was nothing overly exciting in what they were saying to each other, but you got a real sense of the tackling and the quality of the tackling and the ability to turn the ball over. And again, if it wasn't for the boos at the end, I don't think we'd be talking about David Gough in any way. Like, he did a really solid job, and there seemed to be a sense that it was the Dubs booing him. Surely the Kerry fans
I think
still stuck in the hill.
The Dubs were pissed off that he gave Clifford. So Clifford has a shot that goes wide and then gets called back for like the tiniest little. On the replay, you can see that he pulls the jersey. That Fitzsimons had pulled the jersey, and I don't think he needed to, because Clifford was shooting wildly and was missing. But then he kicks that point, and the Dubs are like, "Oh, that was not fair. Well, that's ridiculous behaviour." What? Yeah, we haven't called it all game. It's like, yeah, well, you saw it though. It's a foul.
So I don't know. If you were on the hill, let us know. The sense was that, well, obviously the Kerry fans got out of there as quickly as they possibly could.
Yeah.
So why would they be booing? They wouldn't have been on the hill. But actually, I think there was still a huge amount of Kerry fans on the hill, and surely the Dubs aren't booing the referee. I don't know. Maybe everyone just boos the referee. If you put the referee in the big screen in any game, everyone's going to boo him.
Kenny the Dad wants to know, can we give an honourable mention to the bizarre lineup of pitch-side commentators the BBC had? It did seem as if the BBC had like one of those. So Darragh Breen, Paddy Keelty, Paul Mescal,
and
Adrian Dunbar,
from Line of Duty.
Was Seamus Coleman on with them as well?
Yeah,
because he was photographed. Aisling O'Reilly was talking to him before the game, and obviously Seamus is Desi Farrell's first cousin. But he was photographed with Patrick Keelty and Adrian Dunbar outside. I didn't see him pop up, but again, it feeds into that bigger conversation of All Ireland final day, All Ireland weekend, what it can be, what your coverage should be, how early the coverage should start, like a parade of celebrities. And in fact, everyone, you didn't look at any of those 4 sitting there and go, that's a bit cheesy. Oh, actually no, here's 4 guys who are coming along who are going to enjoy the game, who all have a little bit to add. A bit of razzmatazz, there's no harm in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the BBC have one more press box seat than RTE, if I'm right in saying. Someone told me that last week. So like, obviously they're using
our
them.
press box seats, but go on.
Well, yeah, but yeah, it's funny to see them using them in that way. Like, it's.
But they were up they were up in their box.
Okay, right, yeah.
So they have a broadcast box right beside where RTE's broadcast box.
Yeah.
They took the old Sky broadcast box, I think it is. So they had the 4 of them sort of squashed in there.
That's a good idea. Grow the game. Dion Dublin, the likes of those lads, throw them in.
It was live on BBC Two, was it? So Richard Cole's tweeting about it during the week.
It was strange because last week the hurling final, as far as I'm aware, was only on BBC Two Northern Ireland, where
football.
Yesterday's match was on BBC Two for everybody in the UK to watch.
Mainstream UK not ready yet for hurling.
But Damien messaged this morning on YouTube. Got to watch my first All Ireland final shown on BBC Two in England. Great watch. Is that right?
Hurling.
Oh, the hurling, was it?
What are you
football.
asking?
No, be the first time it was on terrestrial TV.
In England.
That's still a thing in England.
Yeah.
That's so step forward.
Well, just good coverage. A little bit of like, we're thinking about this in a way that other people aren't thinking about it. Oh, you can have these people. Well, I mean, is it too much for us? It is. We can't. No, sorry. Too busy being boring. 3 minutes past 8. Is that it?
We have one more.
Kerry in the red, Kerry in the red. You lose in All Ireland, you end up in the red. It's simple as that. What did they do wrong? I think it was hard. We could have a good debate, I'd say, about who the man of the match was from a Dublin side. I think like Cluxton, 100% from his kickouts. Was it 44% of their scores started with Cluxton? They worked them all the way up to the pitch. I thought all the way through that team, like from Fitzsimons is obviously a contender. Brian Fenton, we were probably debating before, and I thought Fenton at the big moments in the game was again the one who just scored 2 great points.
Did score 2 great points.
Calmed it down.
I thought Jack Barry was great, though. I thought was your point here? Who in Kerry would you say?
So I think for Kerry, you were looking going, well, Paul Gainey scored the goal, and there was a sense of, maybe we thought Gainey was gone, but he actually comes back and he has this big moment, and he was very solid. I think Paddy O'Shea was brilliant. Paddy Clifford was brilliant. Paddy O'Shea things might have been different. Paddy Clifford was brilliant. And aside from that, I
thought the defence was excellent. Costello was going to be an all-star up until the final, and Tom Sullivan marked him out of the game. Tom Sullivan, maybe you would have, in a different day, just scored a couple of points.
He ran out of steam at the end. He was gone for those last couple of Dublin scores. He was gone.
Shawnee O'Shea started very, very well. Like, his accuracy was good, and then the Gavin White moment was the turning point, wasn't it?
I thought Kerry's half-back line struggled. That's the bit where there was too much space at times for Dublin to kick those points. Like the couple of Fenton points he just strolled through.
Yeah, but that's I don't know. The half-back line are actually marking, and that's where Paddy Talley's defensive system broke down. Like, Dublin were carrying the ball straight to the centre of the Kerry defence, and no one quite knew what to do, although it didn't cost them as much as it might have done with a few goal chances. Yeah, they managed to get turnovers. So look, I actually thought the Kerry defence was excellent, and they did their bit, keep Dublin to 115. Dublin are going to score 20, 22 points, but they didn't.
Wasn't that, but in the conditions, I don't think it was ever that type of game. I think Dublin defensively set up so well. They forced them down the wings, they forced them down the channels. In that first half, when Clifford was getting the ball, he was getting it miles out on the sideline. For the goal, it didn't matter because he was still able to create something. But then Dublin just burst on the counter.
I think Con didn't score. Is that right? Con didn't score.
You'd said that before the game, you'd be like, Dubs aren't winning this game.
Costello taken off. I thought the Kerry defence was excellent. But anyway,
Con hits the crossbar, of course, so that unbelievable shot.
It's the crossbar. So somebody was giving out about him taking a mark in the semi-finals. In one of the bits that we'd done, was like, I'd say somebody would have had a word with him. You go, and you next time don't take the mark. Actually, if he'd taken the mark in the first half and just taken his point, he might have got into it. But he catches the ball, brilliant catch.
Takes on Morley,
and the ball spins off the outside of his boot, and it's a wide. It was like, wow. And then did he one clear off the line as well? Early in the first half?
Paul Gainey had. So Gainey had the very early chance. It was actually going wide, and the Dubs cleared it off the line.